evening, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Red Sox Digest. I'm your host tonight, Jim Delfino. And yes, I just got back from vacation. Perfect timing, because apparently the Red Sox decided to spend the last week playing baseball like it was community theater. Two straight stinkers in Arizona, 10 to 5, 5 to 1, look less like Major League Baseball and more like the Sox auditioning for America's Funniest Home Videos. Then Sunday rolls around, and out of nowhere, Nick Sogard, a man most fans thought was an Uber Eats driver, steps up in the ninth and with a pinch hit double to save the series. Final score: Red Sox win 7-4. Chapman locks down his 17th straight hitless save, now 29 on the season, and for once, Boston didn't look like the Diamondbacks' chew toy. Joining me tonight is the human megaphone himself, Nick Face. This guy argues with fans on Twitter like he's defending the last cannoli in Boston. The Sox could lose 12 to nothing, and Nick's still typing essays, all in caps, about how technically the strike zone was crooked. If passion were runs, the Sox would have clinched the division in May. His motto should be, I don't lose arguments, I just block faster. He's like the Red Sox Nostradamus. Every other tweet is, if they had just listened to me back here, they would have already been in the Hall of Fame. Also joining me tonight is Nick Diamond. Nick is coming straight from Florida, and he is joining us. I have a little bit of a issue with my screen here, so I'm sorry about that. So we'll move right into the game itself. So your Boston Red Sox are now 79 and 65 on the season, 3.5 games behind the first place Blue Jays in the AL East. Your hometown team now has a magic number of 14 to qualify for a playoff berth. That means any combination of 14 wins or losses by the most likely closest team. So we're talking about the Rangers here. The Red Sox will clinch a postseason spot for the first time since Chaim Bloom was cleaning Fenway seats. But two straight stinkers again in Arizona, 10 to 5 and 5 to 1, made us a lot harder now with this week coming up. On Friday, the Sox lost thanks to Corbin Carroll and friends treating Chase Field like a pinball machine, and 5 to 1 on Saturday when Brandon Fart impersonated 1999 Pedro while the Sox defense did interpretive dance. Then Sunday rolled around, and out of nowhere, we talk about Nick Sogard, add in a Jordan Lawler throwing error that gift wrapped 2 runs earlier, and suddenly Boston remembered how to play baseball. Tonight, we're going to start off with Nick Face's Word of the Day. It's brought to you by the New York Yankee Stadium Squirrels, the only Bronx residents who show up every game, steal more bases than the Yankees, and still have better fielding range than Giancarlo Stanton. And here we go with Nick Face's Word of the Day.
And now it's time for Nick Face's Word of the Day.
See this team here, folks? See this team? I don't give a crap right now about that for Word of the Day. My Word of the Day is congratulations. I just got back from a wonderful wedding that my brother and my new sister-in-law just became a pair, and we couldn't be more ecstatic. So this Word of the Day goes out to my brother and my sister-in-law, how grateful and how awesome it was to be a part of such a wonderful wedding. And I can't wait to see what the future holds for them. It was awesome for our family to come together and to celebrate 2 great people. And now that SOB is off to Hawaii for 2 weeks. So screw you. And on the Red Sox front, just in all seriousness, you think I'm happy with this team? You really think I'm happy? It's miserable. If you want to go with the Red Sox Word of the Day, miserable. Nick Sogard has to save the Red Sox to win a game. Come on. Like, are we being for real? Like, this is where we're at, where we have to survive on guys that have no business saving a season. I know some of you think that we're looking good for the playoffs. I don't see a light right now. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be negative, but I'll believe it when I see it. I don't like this team right now. Without Roman Anthony, it's a struggle, and I really don't know what we're going to do as the end of this September hits. Usually we collapse. I don't want to collapse, but I'm at least mentally preparing myself to know if they do lose, I'll understand. And if they don't get in, I'll understand, I guess. Still be mad. But I'm not psyching myself out and say, here it comes. Game one, baby. Here it comes. I can't do it. I can't do it right now.
Nick Diamond, your opening takes and reactions.
I still think they get into the playoffs, but I don't like how they're playing. If you go back to how they were playing pre-Roman Anthony, they were 32 and 35 without Roman Anthony. And all those games were with Rafael Devers. So you can make a case for this team being a very bad team without Roman Anthony and Rafael Devers. At least offensively, they're a pretty bad team at the moment. So that's what it comes down to. I just think there's not enough time left, and the teams behind the Red Sox suck just as bad. So I think they still get in. If they get into the playoffs and they don't have Roman Anthony, I don't see them winning much, especially not at Fenway Park. And I don't think they can get that one seed, or not the one seed, the first wild card without Roman Anthony. So that's what I kind of see. That's my takeaways right now. I hope they can go to Sacramento. I almost said Oakland and sweep, but at this point, I think they're not going to sweep.
Yeah, I'm worried too. I mean, the Athletics have a few guys there that really are buying for the Rookie of the Year award. So they've got to be very, very careful, and they've got to be able to pitch very carefully to that team. The A's had a little bit of a run there. I mean, they're still a really bad team, but you got 6 games left against the A's. You've got 3 against the Yankees, 3 against Tampa Bay, and then it finishes off with Toronto and Detroit. So, theoretically, the Red Sox they are in a position essentially to have their own fate. They don't have to really worry about other teams winning, other teams losing, and so forth. They just have to go out and do what's necessary and win series at this point. One of the interesting things I was looking at too is the fact that Crochet looks like he's got about 4 starts remaining. Tonight, one against New York, I think Tampa Bay, and then the first game of that Detroit series. And we brought this up a couple weeks ago. It was premature, but it was just kind of hindsightful thinking about that last series in Detroit and what it's going to mean. And if the Red Sox, depending where they are located in the playoff hunt, should or should not start Crochet on that Friday, September 26th. With that being said, Nick Diamond, I'll ask you this question just for fans who haven't heard us discuss this before. In the event that you are tied with Toronto or tied with the Yankees or whatever the situation may be, where do you draw the line about starting Crochet in that Friday night game?
If it's a Friday night game, I think I start him no matter what. If it's to have to start him on the last game of the season to get the home field advantage, I don't start him. But I don't think I skip a start to give him extra rest going into the playoffs. I think you try to win as much as you can. But I would try to line him up to be the opening day, or not the opening day, but the game one starter in the playoffs, no matter what. I think that is the number one goal, is to have Garrett Crochet start the playoffs on game one. So no matter what, you get that to happen.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that. Nick, I'll ask you a similar question. The issue now becomes whether, let's assume it's going to be the Yankees against the Red Sox. It's just a difference between home field advantage or you're in New York. So, Nick Face, what would you do? Where do you draw the line?
I'm actually kind of confused by the question, and this is nothing on you or nothing on Nick here, but folks, you need to win every single game that you can right now. And we want to think about jumping starters and giving people days off. In a perfect world, it sounds great in theory. You can't afford to do this right now. You're struggling so bad, you have to bring up Peyton Tolley. Was he ready? He's got one good one in, technically. And then this clunker that we just saw this past weekend. You got Dustin May. You don't know what the hell you want to do with him. I know us fans, we know what we want to do with him, but as an organization, you don't know what you're doing. What is Kyle Harrison and witness protection program now? Can we get an APB on him, please? What's going on with that? And then we got another mystery. Oh, maybe somebody else is coming up tomorrow, but we haven't got the official word from Chad Tracy from Worcester right now. Do you want to put Bernardino in as your opener? How's that make you feel, folks? I can't stomach this right now. I need a Xanax to watch the freaking Red Sox right now. It is insane because in a perfect world, you would want to skip Crochet. He's pitched as many innings as he's ever had in his career. Lucas Giolito looks gassed and needs to be skipped. Brian Bayo, he looks gassed too. It's taking a toll on a long season here, but you need wins. You can't lose 2 games against the Diamondbacks. You can't do that. And I'm going into this series for the Sacramento A's. That sounds so stupid. Saying that the Red Sox will lose 2 of 3. Because I still have zero confidence that A, the lineup is going to give you something to give you runs, and B, the pitching staff. And yeah, I'm even going to put it on Crochet. I'm not going to put it on him personally, but on his innings limit, he's tired. I get it. But I don't have faith in that right now. And Nick must have breaking news, so go to Nick.
Nick, go ahead.
No, so it's not really breaking news, but we were going to talk about it later. There's a lineup change. Duran's back in left field.
Oh, he is. Okay.
That is new. Something Nick brought up about they might bring up Conley early to start maybe tomorrow, or he's up there to be the next guy in line to start or come up if needed. I made a tweet I want to bring up in December. I listed 10 starters of Red Sox pitching depth. It's Garrett Crochet, Tanner Houck, Walker Buehler, Brian Bayo, Lucas Giolito, Cutter Crawford, Richard Fitz, Quinn Priester, Cooper Criswell, and Patrick Sandoval. 3 of those guys remain. And a lot of these Red Sox fans were out here trying to say the Red Sox don't need more pitching depth. Craig Breslow built as much as he could. The Red Sox don't need any pitching depth. Well, we have 3 left, and we're running with Peyton Tolle, a guy we drafted last year, Dustin May, a guy we overpaid for the last minute at the deadline because we had to, and Conley Early, another guy that we just drafted, and then the guy that we hate, Kyle Harrison. That's our pitching depth. Brandon Bernardino is our starting pitching depth. I never want to hear a Red Sox fan ever say again that we don't have enough. We have enough depth at the pitching position. You know, the Quinn Priester trade. A lot of fans will sit there and kind of say there was a good trade for the Red Sox. It will never be a good trade. Imagine having Quinn Priester slot into the 3 slot right now. You know, he'd be perfect with his 3.4 ERA. He eats innings. He goes 6 1/3 every time he's out there. He's better than Peyton Tolle. He's better than Dustin May. I would just love to have him right now, but of course,
this is
you
the
got to
problem
trade and maximize on the value.
This is the problem that you had as an organization. Is the organization has either lied or doesn't know how to rehab some of their pitchers, because from all the points that we heard before Quinn Priester was dealt, oh, don't worry, Tanner Houck's coming back. He just needs a little break. Cutter Crawford, he'll be fine. We're going to get him around the All-Star break. Don't you worry. We got Cooper Criswell. He's a great depth move down there. Don't worry, fans. It's good. And it blew up in your face.
You know, if Red Sox Stan is watching this, he's probably laughing, because earlier in the season, he was on the fact that we didn't have enough starting pitching depth. And Stan, if you're listening, how you doing, brother? And Gordo, he commented to Stan and said, starting pitching is not a need. And Stan went off on that, and he continues to go off on it as well. He should. You bring up Priester. You know, to this day, I'm still dumbfounded as why the Red Sox gave up on him. They got what they thought was going to be an elite minor leaguer who hasn't amounted to jack squat. And, you know, Priester, he's making Breslow look like an idiot. And he did not do enough for this starting rotation and do enough of his homework. He relied too much that Walker Buehler was going to be a turnaround guy, and it came back to bite him in the ass. And that's where the biggest failure is, because if Buehler was giving you what Giolito gives you this season, we'd be in a whole different place. And he knew that going into the trade deadline. And that's what really upsets me, because they really needed to get the deal done to either get Alcantara or get Joe Ryan, and they failed. And as a result of that, you had to get a consolation prize in Dustin May, who, by the way, was taken out of the rotation and is now being put back in the rotation.
It
So I'm
isn't even a consolation prize, Jim. It's trash. The
no, but
Dodgers,
yep,
trash is what we
I
have.
absolutely. But, that's a confidence booster for fans that the guy that couldn't start anymore is back in the rotation. Nick, you had a comment.
Yeah, if we're talking about Quinn Priester, do you guys remember the guy who made the rotation over Quinn Priester out of spring training? We're probably going to see him in this series. Sean Newcomb, who we DFA'd.
Mm-hmm.
He has a 2.86 ERA on the season with the Red Sox
course he
and
does.
the A's combined. That's another
Yep.
pitcher that we had as pitching depth that we just let go for free. The
Yeah, they do it
A's have
all.
put him in their bullpen and reinvented him. He's been great for them. It would be wonderful to have him as a swingman or as a starter going tonight. Or not tonight, but tomorrow. It would be amazing to still have him in the organization.
Yeah, we really need somebody like that. That's the problem. And to your point, we keep talking about Kyle Harrison. What does Dustin May do for you that Kyle Harrison can't? That's my question. The other thing that concerns me is too much reliability on Peyton Tolley. Yes, he had a great first game. The game in Arizona was trash. I'm telling you right now, I am not happy with his secondary stuff. I'm really scared that he's going to get lit up. So this is going to be a big game for him on Wednesday, because if you cannot get a good quality start out of him, it's going to be really a really big problem. But let me just go back to the numbers a little bit. If Crochet does pitch that Detroit game, and you can win all 4 of his starts, that means you got to find 10 more victories or a combination of Rangers losses. I think they get into the postseason, guys, but they're going to be on fumes, and they're going to be crossing that finish line with, exasperated. Nick Face.
Yes, I agree with you, Jim. They're going to just barely, and I mean barely, squeak by if help does become of essence. If the Rangers tank, if Seattle continues to tailspin, if we beat the Yankees, which we've done, I keep forgetting a little bit that as bad as we've been at times, we still have outdueled the New York Yankees. I forget about that. And I kind of put it on a seesaw. Who would I rather? Yankees or the Red Sox for a roster? And I still think I would take the Red Sox, because at least they have the pitching and the back end of the bullpen that gets the job done. Now, would I love an Aaron Judge if healthy? Hell yeah. We don't have that. I can't tell you who our best hitter is on our team right now, because you can flip a coin every night to determine who the 4 hitter is going to be, what Story's going to do, if Duran's not going to strike out 2 or 3 times a night. You don't know. They have zero consistency when it comes to being able to count on people. And this is no knock on how great Story's been at times this season. I'm not trying to rip these guys. I'm trying to be realistic here so fans can come down from Mount Rushmore right now screaming down, oh, I'm going to get my playoff ticket. I can't wait. I can't wait to see this team in the postseason again. Put your goddamn brakes on, people. You're driving me insane. You got to get there. And this team has struggled mightily since 2019 to get into the playoffs. I don't want to have to continue to remind people that we just barely squeaked into the playoffs in 2021. Just barely. And we got lucky. We beat the Rays in the first round, and then the Houston Astros took care of business in the second round in the ALCS. And you won that from getting lucky towards the end. I'll never forget the Devers' big home run against the Nationals. And then Kike Hernandez was on another planet in the playoffs that season. Could that happen to some of these guys on this team? Sure. But over the long haul, if they continue to be a team that we see here, Jim, Nick, I'm sure you guys are going to say it. It's going to frustrate the living heck out of us because organizationally would have to stomach another season of dealing with Pete Fatsi, another season of having to stomach, let's make sure we reduce salary. We don't want Alex Bregman anymore. Oh, let Trevor Story walk. We're fine. We're just going to put Marcelo Meyer in there and bring up the next young kid. And Roman Anthony is our god. That's what would happen. So I'm trying to come at this from a realistic standpoint to tell you that if they just barely squeak in a way, yeah, we're doomed for the future. Sorry, we are.
Yeah, this team, as it's constructed and with the loss of Roman Anthony, certainly doesn't look like one that has an opportunity to go deep into October. I do have a question for Nick Diamond, and I'll phrase it in this way. When you're looking at the playoff odds here for the Boston Red Sox for this season, as it currently is standing, if the Red Sox and the Yankees tie, the advantage goes to the Red Sox because we have the season series.
Head to head.
The Texas Rangers are a game and a half out. You're plus 3.5. And I want to emphasize this to the fans first, and then Nick, I'll ask you the question. We started the season against the Texas Rangers, and we went 1-3 in that series. And these idiot fans on Twitter come after me, probably come after you guys as well. Relax. It's early. Yep. Don't worry. You got 150 some odd games left. Well, newsflash, morons. If you tie with the Rangers take the series and you're out of the playoffs. So when I come at you and I say every game is important, and I say you can't win a championship in April, but you could lose it, start thinking a little bit more clearer before you start being a keyboard cowboy. Nick, the question I have for you is, we are tied with the Seattle Mariners, 3 games won and 3 games lost. Tell the listeners and the viewers a little bit more. What happens in that scenario if there's a tie between Seattle and the Red Sox?
I'm pretty sure it would go to against your own division record. So I don't know what the Red Sox record is against the whole division is. I know they play the Yankees well. They played the Orioles all right. They played the Rays.
We played the Rays well. Yep.
Yeah, but the Blue Jays they've got crushed by. And I don't know what the Mariners record is against their division. So it would really come down to that. So that's what I think it is.
Yeah, if anybody listening knows the answer to that, put it in the chat below, and we can cross-reference that. But I think you're right. The reality is I just don't know what.
I got it.
You have
it. Red Sox are 27-16 against AL East this season.
That sounds good.
That means you're taking care of business. So that's a great advantage.
And that's down to the 8-2 against the Yankees, pretty much.
Now, Nick, can you find Seattle's record in their division? Because you said we have 27 victories.
We are right now at 27-16 against the AL East. Let me look at that right for a second. 27-18. The Mariners are a record against the AL West this season.
So it really comes down to how we play our last games.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it's not over.
No. What's the third answer there? I mean, if it's 30-10 and 30-10, just to make the numbers quick, what happens?
Probably the American League. I don't know.
It would be total wins, wouldn't it? Maybe total wins. I don't know how you would go into that.
Well, if you tie, say they tied for the third wild card, they'd have the same amount of total wins.
Right.
So there's got to be another.
There's got to be a third tie-breaking answer there.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, I wonder if there is something into that. There's got to be. I don't know if that's ever happened before, but it's close enough to.
Oh, here it is. It's head-to-head division or head-to-head between tied teams, interdivision, and then interdivision record.
I'm seeing what you're seeing.
Non-division
right
teams in their league, so the rest of the American League. And then if that's tied, it goes to the record over the final half of the season.
Jesus.
So I guess after the All-Star break or I don't know.
Yeah, right.
So for fans that don't know the difference between intra and inter is against the teams that you play against in the American League. Inter is when you're playing against the National League teams.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of technicalities that have to get balanced out here if you do end up finishing with a tie record here within the wild card. So we'll do our best to see how this fulfills itself when that, I guess, last week of the season hits.
Yeah, I mean, with the 18 games left, I'm sure it'll be the topic of discussion on each of our shows for now until the end of the season, at least. Just kind of moving around a little bit. Willie Abreu, I've heard now that it's been out. He won't return during this A's series or the Yankees series, but Alex Cora says he has a good chance to return next week. So if that's the case, I mean, you're looking at the possibility of who's next on that. I don't have it up right now.
It's the A's again at home.
A's again. Okay, that's the next one. Nick Diamond, your thoughts and reactions to that, and can we afford to coast enough without Abreu's bat in the lineup now that we don't have Anthony?
Not really, especially because Refsnyder's also down. If you look at the report today, he's also banged up for day to day. So who knows how long he's down. And I think they weren't impressed with what they saw with the password, so I kind of assume that's why he's not up now to replace one of these guys. So they're kind of just mixing and matching. They got not Neaton out there tonight. They got Nick Sogard out in right field tonight. So that's kind of surprising. A guy who doesn't play the outfield very much, mostly a second baseman, third baseman kind of platoon infielder. But yeah, it's kind of surprising that they have to use these kind of guys to plug the outfield. And at the All-Star break or the deadline, we were talking about how much outfield surplus they had and if they were going to deal from one of these guys. So imagine if they traded Jarren Duran and we were talking about having Nate Eaton, Ceddanne Rafaela, and then Nick Sogard as their outfield right now, trying to win the division.
Nick Face, why can't they just bring up Christian Campbell and put him in the outfield if it's
the poor thing, they're so worried about his feelings, Jim. His feelings. They don't want him to cry. They don't want him to be ruined being a major league player, and that's ridiculous because he's done everything, at least in my eyes, from what I've seen and what I've witnessed from watching from afar, to prove that he's ready to come up to get his second cup of coffee here. I don't get it. I think he would be a spark, especially considering that you just lost your stud in Roman Anthony. Give us fans something that we can root for. I can't root for Jarren Duran to strike out 3 times a game anymore. Are you guys excited about Nick Sogard playing right field tonight? I can't wait to watch that late game out there with him in right field. It's going to be so great. Give me something to enjoy. I feel like I'm getting tortured with watching whatever Cora flips his dice with tonight. Let's see who this is going to be. Here's our right fielder tonight. Let's flick it again. This guy's going to play second base tonight. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. This is Major League Baseball that we're watching here. And it's just not good. We need something here to get something going. And then back to the Wilyer Abreu front. I am very concerned about this guy's future. This guy is nothing but injury prone. I think he's on the IL more than he plays. You can't count on him. When he hits for power. I'll give him that. Got a high strikeout rate just like the rest of the crew. But I want somebody that can get in the lineup at least and produce and give me something. I've been all over Duran all season. You know that. But at least one thing I can count on for Jarren Duran is durability. I can at least know the guy's going to be in the lineup. Whether he's striking out, like I say, 2-3 times a night. I guess that is better than the alternative and having to deal with, well, who's going to play right field tonight? Oh, you playing right? No, you're playing left. No, never mind. You're going to go to left and you're going to go to right. That's what they're doing right now. That's what it is. It's a comedy hour.
Yeah, it's been pretty pathetic. Of course, everybody's going to say, well, what else do you expect him to do? I mean, what's the alternative at this point? And unfortunately,
these guys are good.
Unfortunately, they don't have it. And whose fault is that? That's Breslow's fault, because you didn't construct the team well enough to survive these types of situations. And unfortunately, he had to rely on his whole offensive production and gelling with a rookie in Roman Anthony. And now you're trying to do the same thing and pull a rabbit out of a hat with Peyton Tolley. Interesting tidbit. Nick Diamond brought this up today in our situation room. Kyle Teal is now batting .315 on the season. He has an on-base percentage of .395 and an OPS of .895. And Nicky had mentioned maybe it was Marcelo Mayer that should have been in that deal. Your thoughts and comments?
I've been on record here saying that it's always been Marcelo Mayer was the one I wanted traded. I question his durability. I question his ability to hit for average and hit lefties at the major league level. I think he was the guy that I would have traded. I think Kyle Teal has the lowest floor. He's a catcher that's going to hit for average. He's going to be a good everyday left-handed hitter in your lineup. So I would not have traded a guy like Kyle Teal if I could have. I mean, I'm not going to complain about trading Kyle Teal for Garrett Crochet. Let's put that out there right now. I'm very happy with how we got Garrett Crochet. I would have done it again. But if I was the GM, I would have pushed to trade Marcelo Mayer over Kyle Teal 100%.
Well, see, I think this is one of the things, and I'm sure both of you guys will agree with me and fans too. This is where Dave Dombrowski was such a great general manager because he could identify, the prospects from the suspects and be able to actually keep the guys that he wanted to keep, that he really knew or thought were going to be something special, and move the suspects for the talent that he wanted. One of the biggest, names that crossed that was when the Chris Sale trade happened. And the White Sox at that time wanted Rafael Devers, and Dave said no. And it wound up working out very, very well for us. But he's done that consistently the entire time he was here. And I've, and not to bring up a dead horse, but a lot of people said, well, he gutted the farm system. And I always said to everybody, what trade did he do that you wanted to take back? Because there's none of them. And that's just the reality of what you're seeing now with, the Chaim Bloom era, now the Craig Breslow era. You're looking at that and you're saying, and to your point, Nick, I agree with you. I would have traded for Garrett Crochet. I would have just said, choose somebody. So, but the reality is that if you've got a trump card and you really think that Meyer's not the guy, you should have pushed to put Meyer in that deal and kept Teal. And at that point, let's not forget, we had no clue what Carlos Narvaez was going to be like. We didn't expect him to have the offense and defense that he provided for us in the first half. Sure, he's tailed off quite a bit now, but if you had Teal on this team right now with the offensive lack that we have, where would you be? Would you have a couple extra victories? And would that make a difference when you're coming down with 18 games to go and you're battling the Rangers and you're battling Seattle and, of course, battling the New York Yankees? You don't know where that would be, especially with the Anthony injury. So this is the problem that the management has now. Same thing with Chris Sale. He made a mistake there as well. You got what's his name there from Atlanta. That we haven't been bringing up as well. So
Vaughn Grissom.
Vaughn Grissom, and I'm telling you, he's striking out quite a bit. I mean, people can make a Crochet trade. It's not that hard to do it, but it's being able to find and identify those prospects versus those suspects. And I'm not really sure that Craig Breslow is good enough for that. Look at what he did at this deadline. Steve Matz, he's okay. Dustin May, it was terrible. And we don't even know now he's going to be back on the rotation how this is going to pan out. But I'm not sold on Breslow as the GM. But that's what happens when you interview 15 people and 16 of them say no. Nick Diamond.
One thing on Matz, and I think he's a good trade. I think it was a good trade to get Matz, but the fact that he's left-handed in the Red Sox, the one thing they have is left-handed relievers. Chapman, Wilson, Bernardino, they're all solid lefty relievers. Even Murphy's all right. So acquiring another lefty was weird. And now we're struggling to get a right-handed reliever besides Whitlock that we can trust. We're trotting out Weiser, who's gassed. I know he's been good in the beginning of the year, but now he's kind of horrible. He's gassed. They don't trust Slayton anymore. Ever since he's been back from injury, he's been pretty awful. So it's been Whitlock, who they stretched an inning and 2/3 last night, which is kind of crazy. We've been talking about kind of earlier in the season how we don't want him to go more than an inning. And we had to. We kind of had to. We're going to lose yesterday if we didn't. They had to get Whitlock to get that get through the 7th inning there, because Zach Kelly would have blown it. They would have lost last night. They would have got swept, and we would have been even less happy going into this podcast today. So I think they should have gotten a right-handed reliever, not a left-handed reliever. But I think Steven Matz is okay. I mean, I think if he was right-handed, he'd be way better.
Remember, we got our big 8th inning weapon from the Giants in Jordan Hicks. That was a direct quote out of the mouths of Sam Kennedy and Craig Breslow. Our 8th inning right-handed weapon, shutdown reliever. There it is right there for you, folks. Enjoy.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention one more thing on the Kyle Teal front. Back when that trade was getting done with Crochet, if I was Kyle Teal or Marcelo Meyer. I was Marcelo Meyer camp, but I want to tell you why the Red Sox also didn't elect to trade Marcelo Meyer, because we never mentioned the biggest question entering 2025, Trevor Story. That is the reason they didn't part with Marcelo Meyer at the time, because he was coming. This would have been year 3 in a row if Story was going to be hurt. So they needed to have something for a depth piece outside of David Hamilton at shortstop. That's why they did that. I was a big Teal guy. I didn't want them to trade the catcher because we already knew depth-wise, was Connor Wong going to put up another season like he did last season? Well, we know the answer to that now. They are so damn lucky that they got production out of Carlos Nevarez. If they hadn't, and we had went into the season just with Connor Wong, that would have screamed disaster, and I don't even think we would be having a conversation right now about playoffs. I want to put that on record, point blank right now. Carlos Nevarez saved this season by being an anchor behind the dish. And yes, he is overworked, and he is dinged up and everything. But we should be very fortunate and very grateful that we got what we did out of Nevarez. Thank you, Yankees.
Yeah, I mean, that thank you is skin deep, because the guy we gave up, I can't think of his name right now, but he's been dealing. Nick, go ahead.
Elmer Rodriguez Cruz. I was going to bring him up earlier when we brought up the Teal thing.
Yeah,
we could have just not traded him, and then we could have had Teal and that would have been another pitching death we could have had.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you would have probably brought up Teal right away. Yep.
Last thing on Teal, I forgot one more thing.
Sure.
Marcelo Meyer. He reminds me of somebody, and I think you guys will agree with this, because for the most part, it's only been one good season out of this guy that we traded to get Chris Sale. It was 2019 for the White Sox, and this guy is Juan Moncada. For some reason, Marcelo Meyer to me screams Juan Moncada. I don't know. Just that's how I feel right now. And that doesn't scream to me keeper. That screams to me injury prone, issues, not going to be all this hype, big prospect kind of guy, and he's going to move around baseball quite a bit. He'll probably have a serviceable career, but I don't think he's going to be all the hype that we were expecting him to be. That's just my thought right now.
No, I agree with you. I've said it since his second year. I'm worried we just got another Devin Marrero on our heels here, and 4 more years from now he'll be in the Nesson booth.
I was just going to say, Nesson will be so happy because they'll get another talking
Yeah.
yawn fest on their network.
Yeah, that's the problem. Before we have just final takes and wrapping up, just going to give you a little bit of what my take is, I think, here. Just looking at this with 18 games left, again, Athletics, New York, Athletics, Tampa Bay, Toronto, Detroit. Based on the math and based on the fact that their magic number to qualify for postseason is 14, I'm pretty confident they're going to squeak in. I just really, really worry how deep they're going to go. And I think that depending on what those numbers look like by mid next week or even, around the 20th, I think what they need to do is plan on setting up their rotation, regardless whether it's going to be Fenway or New York, if it should be that, the two of them. And I'm not even talking about the Rangers or Seattle right now. But that's what I think is going to happen. I don't think they're going to screw this up enough and be completely out of the playoffs. I can't believe I'm saying it because, I get fed up with them so much, but I think they're going to just squeak in. It's just a matter of what happens at that point. Nick Diamond, your final thoughts for tonight.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same thing. I think they get in, they play just well enough to get into the playoffs. I don't know how well they perform in the playoffs. I think if they play the Yankees, they have a shot. I would prefer them to play at Fenway Park, but I don't see that happening. I think the Yankees will get that one wild card. I doubt they pass the Blue Jays at this point. I think even then, what is it, 2.5 games? I think that's even too much with 18 games left. So I think if we play the Yankees, we have a tiny bit of a shot. After that, without Roman Anthony, I think it's over. But you never know. Roman Anthony could be back at that time. But I wouldn't bet on it. I think they get in just because there's not enough games left and the teams behind them are just not that good. So I think they'll be playing in October, but I don't know for how long.
Nick, face your final thoughts.
I have a very hard time still seeing this team go to the playoffs. I think the A's play spoiler here in this series upcoming, and then also back at Fenway. I think the A's will show the Red Sox they're a competitive young bunch that is going to give the Red Sox a run for their money. I said it earlier. I think the A's take 2 or 3 from this series here. If there's any glimmer of hope, is that you continue to take care of business against the Yankees. The last week of the season scares the Evan Love and bejesus out of me because you have Detroit and Toronto. Toronto is atop the division here. I think Toronto Blue Jays are a far superior ball club right now than the Red Sox, and I think they're going to knock the teeth out of them. I really do. And I think Detroit, we already struggled early on against them. So I think it depends on what Detroit throws. If Detroit's already clinched and they're done, maybe we get cupcakes. And what I mean by that is that we get, the BC squad. No, not the BC Eagles. I'm saying that you get the guys that are more the reserves that get a chance to play. The Red Sox will only get there if other teams start clinching stuff first, because then you're going to get an upper hand in playing your A squad against their JV freshman crew and hopefully getting in. I want this team to get to the playoffs. I've said this 3 times here tonight, but I have to come at this more as the realistic approach here of what I'm seeing in front of me. I can't say playoffs with what I'm watching and seeing with my eyes. I'm calling it as I see. I still can't see playoffs. Sorry if that offends you all.
No, listen, you're not wrong to have that kind of feeling because
We've been there, done that. That's the
yeah,
thing.
I
We've
could.
seen 2011. We've
Yep,
seen collapses.
yep,
Prove it to me. Prove
yeah,
it.
yeah. This team has had collapses. I followed the Red Sox before you guys were even around, and I'm telling you right now, it's just unbelievable how things used to be, and people don't even understand what they missed out on, in the 80s and so forth. Here's the thing. You mentioned about the Tigers. I brought this up probably a couple weeks ago too when we discussed this. As far as their division's concerned, that's pretty much over. I mean, they got an 8.5 game lead over the Guardians. What worries me, and I am with you on that. Hoping and praying that that last series, that they're playing their
A
scrubs.
layup.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
However, if Toronto and Houston continue to play well, they are going to challenge Detroit for the number 1 spot, which means that Detroit may not back down too much if they really want that best record in the AL. So that's something to watch. Especially the fact that Toronto actually has the better record in the AL right now. And it's, by half a game, but it's percentage points just based on, where we're at right this minute. So it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. But then again, Detroit might say we're okay and we're still going to play the B squad and we don't want any of our guys to get injured. So a lot of that's going to, come out in the next obviously couple weeks here. So that being said, any last minute things before we wrap up? Oh, sounds good. So game's going to be starting against the A's pretty soon. Garrett Crochet. All I can say to the fans is if you lose tonight, I'm probably going to change my thinking a little bit. It's going to be a lot harder. You got 4 Crochet games left. You can't lose one of them. So just keep that in mind. You got to win all 4 of these, and that is with the idea that he is going to play and pitch in that Detroit game. So have a good night, everybody. We will see you on Wednesday night, and we'll dissect everything from that point on.